Or Deason,
Yes.
Gow,
Yes.
Hardinger,
Here.
Youngman,
Here.
and Wyman.
Next on the agenda, approval for minutes from previous meeting, May 16th, 2022.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Any public comment?
Oh, we need to approve the minutes. We had a first and a second.
And then approve.
You gotta ask for the vote.
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion pass. So, do we have any public comments?
Anyone online?
Just me.
Okay, good.
Everybody's staying in. Yeah. Underneath their fan.
Then number 5 on the agenda, May budget status report.
I have a narrative in there. We're doing very similar to last year, 74% collected for 2022, and it's similar to 2021, which we had 73% collected. License revenue is at 40% of budget, and that's common because we don't get our cable franchise fees till later, and that's the majority of the revenue in that line. Fines and forfeitures are behind. They've been low for the last couple of years. This is the third year now. Hopefully they'll pick up towards the end. I know police department's fully staffed now, so hopefully we'll see some improvement on that line. Municipal services, we do charge other municipalities for our services, including inspections and road work, snow plowing. That's all in there, and we have met the budget for that. Expenditures, the only line that I'm really looking at is the village attorney. We're pretty close. It's through April and we're at 42% of the budget, even though the expenditures are only through April, which is 33% of the year. The other one that we're really looking at is the gas line. We're over 50% of our budget, and the expenditures are only recorded through April. We're a month behind, so that's definitely a line that we'll be watching and making sure that we underspend in other areas to make up for the difference. Is there any other questions with the budget status report?
What did we budget per gallon for diesel,
We don't usually budget per gallon.
or however you do it?
Yeah, I guess we look at historically what the cost figure is, and in years past, we've come in under budget, usually by about
Last year
15.
was over $5,000.
Yeah, so usually somewhere around $5,000 to $10,000 under budget. Right, figuring at what, 350-ish maybe a gallon at the high end.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, yeah, right now when it's above 5, it hurts, we talk to the staff about making sure we're not idling equipment and, if we're using it, turn off the key when we're done.
Do we have a vendor that we utilize for most all of that?
Yeah, historically, Condon has filled here. With our move to the new municipal center, we've switched to utilizing fuel cards at the local gas stations. So I guess that was as of what, a month or so ago, if that.
Actually, we just got the credit cards probably less than a month ago. We just received those cards. They're in the vehicles. I assume they started using them last couple weeks.
Do we get some kind of a fleet price or?
I don't know what the discount is, but
Okay, well, but we're getting one.
we do, yes. I mean, historically, what we got delivered here would generally be several cents less than pump price. And then we also don't pay the sales tax.
Taxes.
Yeah. So,
Okay, thanks.
What percentage of our annual budget do you think we've consumed in fuel so far? So if we had budgeted X amount of dollars,
50%, even though we have only 4 months worth of fuel costs recorded.
But like,
so we made up half of our budget for the year,
Yes,
4 months into it.
yes.
Okay, I think that's probably one of the questions.
yeah, and then, so as Jessica mentioned, we look at then offsets. We know our salt budget for this year, we're not gonna be purchasing 100% of the budget there, so there's an offset, I guess, savings in not having to expend the full amount for salt. So we'll be keeping track of that as we get through summer here and make sure we're still overall keeping the public works budget on track.
Is this part of what you're talking about, Jessica, trying to pull from other areas to keep so we're not going in okay.
Yeah, we know, so salt is a funny thing. You guys may look at me and say, well, why don't you lower that for next year? But the minute I give salt budget away to a different department for regular operations, I'm gonna need it and I'm not gonna be able to get it back. So the goal here is during budget season, we wanna keep that salt budget where it is. And use that. If we are lucky with a really nice year like winter like we had last year, we can move that salt budget where we need it to fund these other operating deficiencies. So that's usually how we budget, is we try to keep our normal operations on par. This is the last year, knowing that, okay, we had an easy winter. I'm not gonna lower the budget just because of that, because then I'll be needing those funds next year.
And forgive me if I missed it, but do we have a contingency fund or
We do have a contingency, I think is it 20,000? I don't remember. We lowered it from previous years, but we do have one.
are we capped by the state or by the county of how much we can have in that fund? Is it,
No, but
we didn't dip into it before, that's why we lowered it?
we're capped with our total levy. So we have, last year we had a larger number in there. We could only increase our taxes so much, so we pulled from contingency to balance the budget.
So what do we have? We have roughly $20,000 in contingency right now if we run out of gas money. I guess kind of the way to put it.
I don't think we'll need to pull from that. We'll probably be using the salt savings from not
Okay.
having a hard winter.
I'm just devil's advocate here. We get the worst winter in 20 years.
You mean in November and December?
Right.
We have contingency,
Yeah,
we have some.
okay.
Okay, do we have a motion to acknowledge,
I have a question.
what, oh, sure.
Just, Mike, can you tell me if the, gas prices, oil prices are up, are you having to reduce your asphalt program this year at all?
So that's on the village board agenda. We bid a couple projects and one of them I'm recommending we not do just because prices are higher. A lot of the other stuff that we bid earlier in the year wasn't too bad. It was a little higher than last year, but not astronomically higher, but,
Which project got cut then?
it's a repaving over by the, hospital on Stoneridge Drive.
Okay, just wanted to ask. I knew you had to do something. Normally that happens when you see if gas prices go up, the oil prices go up.
That did not affect any of our general street projects.
No,
That one was being funded by the TIF.
correct.
I move to acknowledge the May 2022 budget status report for all funds.
Second.
Second by Hardinger. Motion's been approved. Any more discussion? All remarks, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion pass. Number 6 on the agenda, TIP 1 and TIP 2 detail reports for May.
Do you have any questions on the TIF reports?
We just go ahead and acknowledge that then?
Yep.
Do we have a motion to acknowledge TIP 1 and TIP 2?
I motion to acknowledge.
Motion by Herniger,
Second.
second by Houston. Motion's been approved. Any more in discussion? No remarks? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion pass. Let's see. Educational presentation and reports.
None. We don't have any this time.
Okay.
Go down to 7.
Number 7, discussions and possible recommendations, a simplified water rate increase.
So, staff was directed to look into applying for a simplified rate increase. This is a automatic increase that the PSC allows us to do. We have to qualify it, so you go through, fill the application, and if your rate of return is less than the allowable, the PSC will allow you to do an automatic rate increase. This year it's 4.5%. And yes, you have to do the 4.5%. It's just and it was determined by CPIs, I believe, after I was looking into it.
What was that? It was approved by who?
Public Service Commission.
They establish what the allowed rate of return is.
Yeah.
If you're saying you have to do 4.5 or you can do
Yes.
less than that?
No, when you, with the simplified
Simplified.
rate increase, if you apply for it, you approve for it, you get an automatic 4.5.
It used to be 3, but it got raised, huh?
It was with CPI, it went up,
Uh-huh.
yes. This is, yeah, normally it was a flat rate, but
When's the last time you did the simplified rate increase?
we have never
2020.
done one.
Huh?
We have never done a simplified rate increase,
You haven't?
no.
You want to do it on a,
We have done 2 formal rate cases since I've been here, since 2007.
what rates were those at that time?
Do you remember?
Has it been 2? I thought it was only 1.
I
We
did
used to
too.
have a tariff that allowed us to increase our
Yeah.
public fire protection charge for all the water main that was added to our system. So in
That's
a
right.
high growth period, we were essentially getting rate increases without having to file for them.
Got it.
So we did a full rate case, I think. The first time was when we did our,
I did it, that's when we had
no, I
the,
guess you put in a inclining block rate for residential customers. So yes, you're right. Okay, that was the first time. And then the most recent time was like 2018 when we did our meter change out program.
that was the final implementation for that one was, January of 2020.
Right, so that was a 2-step rate increase.
And what was that rate? Wasn't it like 20 or something?
Right, and
Yeah.
part of the reason was because we had been reluctant to go out and get rate increases, and we should have been going
Right.
and getting incremental ones like we're doing here. And that was actually the direction the board and I guess this committee also wanted us to take in the future as we need to look at this more regularly and apply
Agree.
more regularly for these increases to avoid the rate shock effect. So that's where we're at right now, and if we wait too long, we're not gonna be eligible for the simplified rate case either. So,
You can do it
You lose.
4 years.
do we have that one?
Yeah, there are 4 years that you can do it until you are required to do a full rate increase. One of the reasons why we're doing that is because we are proceeding with 2 new wells, 7 and 8. With this approved simplified rate increase, if we do see that we need to actually request a rate increase to do this project to get our ROI back to where it needs to be, that will lessen the rate increase that would be implemented down the road.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the board.
I'll second.
Okay. I'll read it, Steph. I understand this very well.
Motion's been approved. Any more in discussion?
I had a question. The
Yes,
simplified water rate increase, is there any other things in the village that have simplified rate increases? Or is it limited just to water?
so PSC For water rates need to be approved by the PSC. For sewer rates, it's unregulated. So the village board can just approve the rate increases. But water is special, and so is stormwater. Stormwater can also just be approved by the board when we decide we need them.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passed. Number 8,
Who's the fun one?
What?
The fun one.
Discussion and possible recommendations on ARPA funds.
So last time we were talking about, instead of borrowing for our full CIP for 2022, we would lower our borrowing and use some ARPA funds for that. And I noticed that in the tables below, I didn't tell how much we were borrowing. So the first one is if we were to increase it, use 1 million of ARPA funds, and then the other one is 1.5 million of ARPA funds. And then the column way on the right tells you what the tax impact is on a $200,000 house, with and without ARPA.
Okay. So it's basically,
I'm sorry. Is that page 63? Is that what you guys have put together for the ARPA funds?
Yeah, Keith put the page 63 together.
That's just a list of some thoughts, things that have kind of been thrown against the wall for a number of meeting cycles. So, just giving some ideas as to what, might be, what we might want to use the funds for. The general principle that's been, attempted to be communicated is trying to use this stuff for one-time expenses. Although with the, again, the capital improvement projects was one thing that's also been discussed.
So when
Just tried to list some of the things that have come to mind here by myself and maybe some other staff at times, or by the board. So, I don't know if you want to run through some of these. The village strategic plan we have talked about with the opportunity to have this funding that we maybe wouldn't have at our disposal under a normal budget year right now.
what was the total again we can have available?
What's that?
What's the total? 4 million?
Total is 2.2 million.
That's at the bottom down there, okay.
And of that total, 20% has been already
Yeah, I saw that.
directed or, I guess, allocated, in
Safer.
principle to SAFER and EMPD. So they have accounted for part of that going for staff bonuses, correct? And so they have some balance left to be used. I know there was some thought they were gonna use it for some equipment purchases, I understand. That's really the only parts that have been committed thus far.
Question. So, to use your terminology, you were throwing some stuff at the wall. Did anything stick?
Well, that's what we're doing.
Did you have something in mind that, was kind of at the top of your list?
That's what you can help us talk about here. I'd say strategic planning being one, or organizational planning, where we, we're going through some transition in the economy and everything else. There's things that are happening. The strategic planning component, I think particularly, which I know is this is also an item that has been requested to be put on tonight's village board agenda. So that would be I think if I was to pick a number one, I guess that's what I'd make my number one priority on the ARPA funding.
So what are we suggesting for the capital, that if we do anything to the capital improvement program.
Capital improvement program?
You said 1 million on the top, the next one's 1.5 million, is that correct? Your charts?
Yes, yep,
I go down the bottom, and are you calculating, is that the CIP 1.1,190,000? Or is that something else? Suggested.
Yeah, I was using so like, we were doing some, say provide for some additional contingency for the municipal facility project. Be one option. We only have a 2.3% contingency on that project overall, and we still are kind of, we still don't have a firm number on the salt shed, which has a $400,000 budget in there. Whether or not there's gonna be some additional cost that we're not currently seeing in the budget yet. If I were to be I would say that we probably are gonna have some.
But I was thinking, I've heard a lot of board members, some that are not here tonight, indicated they'd like to apply some to the capital improvement program. And I was looking to see what your other list was. So, for example, I'm just talking out loud. If we applied $1 million to your first chart above, there's a little reduction over the years. And I don't think going to 5 is not that big a difference. If we had a remainder, then what would we have left to work with as the other contingencies? It'd be 1.2 million, is that correct? Put your numbers on the bottom. If we took $1 million off for the capital, for the top.
Yeah, I probably didn't.
they were not made together.
I don't think until they're not. I can see them not linked together, and that's why I'm just kind of talking out loud. If we took $1 million up there, you'd have something like, let's say roughly $1 million left to do the rest. That's the same round figures. Is that okay? Just for discussion.
If you're saying we take $1 million for CIP,
Yes.
okay?
I would have 630,000.
I'm just listening to some of the board members who have asked me, I don't know how else I need new board members.
Well, I know that some of the comments that have been made too are, we should try to find something that's obviously going to benefit the public as far as, that's been part of the discussions that we've had before is, if we're going to do things for the parks or something like that, that we put some of this money into something that, generally speaking, everybody in the community can enjoy. I think that was discussed at the last meeting that we had. And you've got some park master plans on here, and I know one of the reasons that we've been talking about the strategic plan is because we're hoping that it's going to help identify additional revenue sources for the village without increasing our levy.
Well, that'd be one thing, but I think maybe as important would be what are the community's priorities?
Correct.
What should we all be working towards together instead of us all thinking we understand what we want to be working on? That's my main.
I agree. Identifying the
goal with that. So
direction.
Just to maybe tell you what, okay, so explain, I guess, these numbers at the bottom. So you get this bottom totals down here. You got CIP. So what's included in this CIP would be these. I got the park master plans, the repair the water leaks at the aquatic center, security, we've talked about security equipment for the parks, locks and so forth. And those numbers are just kind of, okay, this is a guess on what we may have for budget. We really need to refine these. But I guess in principle, are those the kind of things we want to do? So the 1,190,000 is the sum of those park master plans that work at the aquatic center and the parks. I didn't even put a number on maybe doing some improvements at Prohaska Park. And then $1 million, I guess, between the new municipal facility and the public safety building that is above what has been budgeted in there. So that's where the 1,190,000 comes from.
Thank you.
When was the last time you updated your strategic plan for the village of Weston?
When under the former administrator, there was work plan that was put together out of a strategic plan. I know that the board, and I think most of the committees at that time were involved in a kind of a work session identifying priorities. And I may be wrong on the year, it could have been even earlier than that, but it's been at least 5 or 6 years, I would say.
We're due for it.
Time for them.
Yeah, and I think we're coming up on our 10-year comp too, right?
I think that's, yeah, a couple of years out yet, but yeah, it's closing in, you're right.
Wasn't last month, didn't we hear a report that said that we're better off to purchase things rather than borrow for them? Because there'd be more cost savings by purchasing some of the things that are needed or paying for these things that are needed as opposed to the small offset that it would be for if some of that money were applied to reducing property taxes, wasn't it determined that it's better just to pay for some of these things outright rather than to borrow for some of these things?
Was that in the context of our discussion about capital equipment purchases?
I think so.
I think that's where the recommendation would be to pay for them up front instead of borrowing long-term, right?
Yeah, that's why I reduced, what you see in the tables above is if I were to reduce the borrowing for our CIP plan by $1 million, that would be the tax savings. So I would, instead of borrowing $1 million, we'd spend it and pay cash for all the equipment. Yes, that's what we're talking about. So, when he's talking about CIP down low, I don't know what items are actually currently in the plan. So when looking at the table above, it is assuming that we will continue on our approved CIP plan and lower the borrowing and continue doing the projects that are on that plan. In essence, not lowering the borrowing, saving money.
What I see here is you have two different documents that are not tied. And so we got things floating on the bottom one. And if some things in the bottom one are tied in the top one already, I'm pretty sure there is if you look at your CIP. If I hear you right.
I did not.
Well, I would say that's not the case. I think anything that's listed here
Is not in the
is not
CIP?
in our current CIP.
Okay.
I looked, as I noted here, we have $740,000 budgeted in our 2022 CIP for the public safety building.
Okay.
Current estimate that, and the board looked at the desired work is 1.158 million. And so there's a difference there of that between 1,158 and 740. Now, also understanding that 130,000 at 740 is something we counted on, I think at the time, coming from a different source, which would have been at the time CARES or the predecessor of ARPA, I suppose. So that 130 is included in the 550. So of the 550, I'd say maybe 130 was in the current CIP, but it was noted that it was coming from a different source. So
Well, the bottom,
the 130 is in that 550.
the bottom line is if you do nothing on the top piece, you got all of it allocated in the bottom pieces. Am I correct to say that?
Yes.
Okay. now
The
I got-
top one does not apply if you choose to do the bottom one.
There you go. So if you choose the bottom one, the top one ought to apply. That's gonna be interesting what happens with the village board on that.
When you get that 2.2 million, how soon do you have to spend it immediately? Like you've got some of the things here, cost to be determined. How far out can you go with that?
Yeah. So 2026 is the last year. 2024, you have to have it, is it,
Okay.
what's the term? Like allocated?
Numerated, allocated, set, decided by that date.
Yes, like a contract in place, like you could sign the contract for $200,000 but you need to pay, and that would be eligible, but you need to pay that contract by 2026.
Correct.
Yes.
I think it would be helpful to understand in principle what we really want to use the money for. So again, this is maybe a first shot at that. And if we, certainly then we know where we can, where it's most beneficial for us to spend our time. And that of consultants, we may be getting numbers from, so that we can get these numbers nailed down better.
I agree, and I think from what we're looking at here, there's not enough information for us to really recommend anything. Without knowing what capital improvement plans we're looking at, and you mentioned that.
The top ones, that doesn't matter. We have a CIP plan. We're planning on borrowing. Do you want to reduce the borrowing by 1 million or 1.5 and reduce the burden on the taxpayers? Or do you want to add additional projects that are not necessarily in this plan right now for borrowing? And so add more assets, more stuff? Or do you want to have a tax relief on our taxpayers? That's what we really want to know. Do you want new stuff, or do you want us to keep going with our current plan and just reduce the borrowing resulting in taxpayer savings?
Yeah, well stated, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Pardon?
That's well put, I guess.
And that's where it was the last time is.
Do you want taxpayer savings, yes or no, and then we move on to the next one? I mean, that's,
I think there's two things that come to my mind. One, the leak at the pool is costing us money daily because of lost water. That, to me, that's a given that has to be fixed, and I've not heard, I mean, probably nobody knows exactly what that cost is gonna be, but it's gonna be significant. And then, the other one is that we've invested in a new municipal center that, at what did you say, 2.3% we had for contingencies and the likes. I think that's conservative, very. I always heard 5%, but whatever that number is, I would certainly hope that we would hold back some funds for that type of thing, since we've invested so much to get where we are with that. And it would just be, I think, very short-sighted for us to have such a gorgeous facility and then not be able to provide some of the things that will fully utilize that facility for the staff and for the entire village.
When you look at the numbers that I'm looking at and basically additional work at the public safety building, you budget so much, you still need about another 550,000. If I look at your numbers right, Keith.
Yes.
And I agree that, because I was on the building committee, that to get it at 3%, you get another 450,000. And then I see the pool, so that you add those up. There's 9, there's 1,000, and you got the pool. So those are major priorities or lists that you look at as one-time expenditures. That would be the capital portion for a community to use these funds. And I'm kind of following up from what Dave's conversation was. Dave, I think you're on the building committee too, aren't you?
Yep.
Yep, okay. And then those I think are very important as portion through. Now, putting some more funds to save the taxpayer portion, I'm just saying you got $1 million, roughly $1.1 million, coming out of the 2.2. Yes, I actually believe in a strategic plan, I believe in organizational study. I'm very high in those. And also, if you haven't looked at your park plan, your park maintenance plan over the years, that's very important to do also. Because I've worked in the communities and see how those never get taken care of, the park plans though. They just seem like they always end up at the end. So I think every one of these things are important to you as a community. So it's actually, we're a finance committee, you got 2 board members here. I've heard, I know, and then you got the other number down there that it's kind of like everybody wants is the 440,000. So there you go. Now I'm down to 1,500,000 just for certain major things, and you only have $500,000 to do debt reduction. So kind of thinking out loud that, if you're gonna use a 2.2 and it's supposed to be done for a one-time shot, so you're gonna take a look at the cap, those big portions. Maybe you don't do the debt reduction. And that's a good, we're discussing now, but I mean, that's something that each one in this room has a different thought on, I can tell you that right now. Just know that.
We might not have any money left by the time we fix the pool and by the time we put in what we need to in a brand new municipal center facility. There might be little or nothing left.
And that's what I'm saying, Dave, the same thing, but I've heard other board members saying, oh, I want to reduce the, tax credit portion, I want to do that, and there may be one or two feel that way, I don't know how many do, I've heard different comments from board members. And I don't know if they sat and seen this list, that's why I wanted to bring it forward at the last meeting, because I never seen this list until now, and I don't know if the new board members have ever seen a list like that until now, so. It's a good discussion, but be nice to have the village board join the discussion on this one as a whole, so they can actually hear comments from us, new members and old board members. And I do believe in staff having, I'm a staffer in different communities. And one staffer may feel it's better to reduce the tax rate, another perhaps to take care of project, but the bottom line is they know it's the higher needs in your community than you do as elected official. Only way you know it because you hear it from your neighbors. And that's why I like listening to elected officials. I do it because they hear what the neighbors are saying. Part of the community too.
I think that we maybe get the input from the other board members that are not present. I mean, if everybody's on board with that, maybe we could have this on our next agenda at the end of our meeting and get the board members, the other board members to come in here just a little bit earlier. And maybe we could have 15 minutes or so.
Board starts at 6, right?
Yeah, we could, have a joint meeting starting at 5:30 if we wanted.
I might not be able to join you then. That's okay. I have a conflict in my job right now. It's changed so much.
What time do you have to leave?
I can leave here at 5:30.
Okay,
I have planning commission meeting.
okay. Could we hold it at 5:15? Would you be able to attend?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to hear discussion personally. I'll be part of it if you let me.
Well, some of these, considering the pool is kind of a time sensitive thing.
Yeah.
We're losing 20-some thousand gallons a day or something. I don't know what the number's up to now.
When did we discover that? How long ago we had this?
Just a startup.
This year?
And, yeah, so in the scheme, I think when it was first introduced, it sounded like it was a much more, much more,
Larger.
acute issue than it really turns out to be. And in the end, the water costs, over the course of the summer, it's not huge compared to the overall operating budget of the pool. It does need to be fixed though. And the problem is it can't be fixed until the pool is closed.
Great.
So we have to wait till
I've had
it's over before we can fix it.
I've had pools before in different communities. They're money pit. I just know that.
Did you say you're gonna wait till the end of the season to fix it?
You would.
Well, there's no, otherwise it's shut down. Otherwise we're shut down for the season.
No, you gotta wait, yeah. And if you look at Sean's report too in the board packet, he mentioned how they've taken a lot of steps to close certain valves, so the leakage is a lot less than what it was initially reported.
They've been playing the musical valve, musical pump.
Could be a piping system.
Yeah.
So,
They're pretty sure it's come down to some of the recirculation in the play structure, so they've shut down a couple features on that to,
when you shut down the end of the year, then you gotta do your dye and all that
Yeah.
connections to see where it is, and you can really find out what your cost is.
Are you going to have to actually allocate more than you think? You have no idea what's going on underground with this water. What's it doing? Is it weakening other structures?
Well, based on the way the soil conditions are around there, we would think not. So, the soils are very receptive to drainage, sanding gravel and so reports,
I think.
goes right through it, so it's not gonna,
We got the Mock Mueller Creek right there too.
there you go.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. So where was I going with that answer? I guess I forgot, so go ahead. What were you gonna say, Mike?
The structure was it, so you don't think that anything else is weakening because of the leak?
No,
They didn't think there was any liability issues where they left it, I believe.
right.
Madam Chair, what I would suggest is that we do the joint meeting with the board on this issue, it'd be very nice. And Keith, if you could, I know you haven't got these in any priority, but when you listen to, we have a better report in the pool, which you already have, I'm pretty sure you're at, it's gotta be done. The 3% contingencies, I understand that. Now, is that contingency also consideration of the salt shed?
The 400,000 for the salt shed is in the budget, so
Okay.
that's not part of the contingency.
And we're hoping that's all you're gonna use on that.
That's the goal, is to use what we
And what tonnage are you bringing in there? I mean, what do you bring, how much storage you're gonna for a half a year, quarter of a year?
I guess our existing shed is about 3,200 tons, and that's
That's nothing.
roughly what we're looking to at least have.
That's it.
And that's how much, is that a quarter of a year, a half a year?
It depends on the year. Some years we've
But
used.
average.
We have not filled it the last 2 years.
Yeah, in general, we probably use about 3/4 of the shed. Some years we've used the entire shed. This past year, we used about half. So,
That's good turnover. I see what you got.
You
yeah,
think you can build it for 400,000?
it sounds like we're probably about 500,000. We have a couple proposals that, the architect's coming back to see if there's a possibility of moving the existing shed or what we could do to utilize this existing structure as much as possible. Maybe salvaging the timbers off of it and reusing those.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where we're at, is looking at a couple different options. Because we did rebid the salt shed, this past spring, and it was like a little over 900,000. So we're looking to see what we can do to,
When we have that answer of knowing what the designer for use exists, do you have an idea when that answer will be available?
On the salt
Salt
shed
shed, yeah.
side?
I'd guess within a month or so.
This is no big hurry, but I think that's something that you need to show on or show it on your list, because I remember that discussion when we were in the building committee.
Yeah.
And
More information is always good.
knowing what the prices have occurred, I can tell you, when we were in the building committee, we were in this the market that we're in today.
Right.
It's very interesting.
And and with respect to where the market is, that we're on the board last fall, remember that, architect came back this spring with the,
Yeah.
discussion that his estimate for the public safety building improvements, he suggested a 30% contingency now because of the volatility with material prices. So that's what was included in this updated budget on the public safety building work. So, I guess the longer we delay, the worse it gets. And I'm sure you're well aware of that too, how material prices are.
Yeah.
Way,
The cost of
Unpredictable.
borrowing is going up now too.
yeah,
The cost of borrowing
Money.
is,
Oh, the Fed just put it up last night,
yes,
yesterday this
A
morning.
lot of stuff's gonna stop.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to look at the stuff here that your needs are high, and you have this cash. That board may have a different look when you talk together as a whole.
Yeah, I think we're gonna need that joint meeting to,
Plus, times have changed since there, even in 2 months,
yeah. Everything's gone up. And we have things that we don't know are gonna cost village in the next couple months. We have things we know are gonna cost money in the next couple months, we just don't know what they're gonna be.
Field's gonna be bigger.
I mean.
it should have included fuel prices or fuel contingency in this ARPA.
You got any flavor about the salt prices?
Salt wasn't too bad.
That came out okay.
We had to put in an order, or how do you want to do it? The state asks we're part of the state bid, so in the spring, you say we'll take this much salt throughout the year. So we do have an order on hand that we need to take by the end of December. So I guess that price was locked in already this year. So
Whenever they can lock the price in early, I work for different communities, so I do that, we do the same. I'm gonna pull out in a few minutes.
I think there's material costs unknown, projects that are unknown as far as how much they're gonna cost. But when it comes to planning, those prices really haven't changed, have they much, Keith?
No, in fact,
Labor.
the second proposal from Craig Rapp, they said their prices or their estimated, costs are the same, they hold those for the year, whatever. So, no, those would be, as long as we have the right scope described, that's the other thing, maybe be verified in those, but
Has anybody reviewed those with you? The proposals for the strategic plan?
no, I'm kind of assuming that's probably the next step, because I guess again, there's another topic that, hasn't necessarily been given the green light by the board at this point yet.
On the agenda for tonight?
Yes.
This committee doesn't need to approve that as part of this overview that you've got here.
They could approve the funding. But that's all they would do is approve where the money wants to come.
And then if it comes from there, it comes from here. Depends on the board decision.
Yeah.
There's one in here that I kind of saw here, Keith. Looks like you're gonna be in the fourth quarter of 2023.
Well, that was a thought that if there's a desire to bring in a successor,
Apparently you're retiring.
I would,
What's your plan?
thinking ahead that yes.
Okay.
The end of 2023.
My experience is when you see that happen, a village strategic plan, organizational study, compensation study is very, very important to do when you bring a new person in. It gives the roadmap of the board and the new person coming in, what you're looking at, what the organization's looking at, the comp plan is, because that helps the board a lot making a decision in making who comes in to be your new administrator. That's what I do for a company. So I don't want to do it, don't get me wrong. I know what we do, they do. So those, to me, those three are very important also. If you're going to be bringing a new administrator in the end of 2023, as a member of the finance committee, you're going to need to find, I don't think you should not bypass those studies up. They're very, very important it's for the organization and also for elected officials. Because elected officials need to know the village strategic plan. So know where they're going, what they want, and then you have an organizational study plan, and then you know what your organization will do. Later on, you do the comp plan, people know where you're gonna be sitting, hiring in the future for the next 5-10 years. If you don't when you change administrators, that's the best time to do it, before you change administrators. I've been involved in several studies, myself done them. I know a community, they got pleased with it, they ran that study for almost 10 years afterwards. Because they had a strategic plan in place, an organizational plan in place, and a comp plan in place. It makes it very, very good, very easy then for the board to operate over a period of years. The staff know what you're looking for, the staff how to operate. And it takes a lot of guessing from the staff out and then from the board members thinking. So I'm strongly supporting that based on the organization of a village. So I'm speaking from experience, but I'm telling you that right now, how many I've done in different communities. And I know staff knows this, but they don't say much about it. They don't push it, they don't promote it.
Well, Keith and I have been working quite a bit on getting this thing in front of the committee so that we can.
Great.
With it.
Some of the stuff I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's what I've been working with Keith on since I got on here.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I 100% agree with you. I did public works for 5 years, so I know how key this is to have as part of not only our community and leadership that we have within the building as well.
It helps everybody all the way through the
Absolutely.
organization. Sounds like no one wants to spend that little money, but basically it gives you, the return is fantastic.
Well, yeah, what you're bringing in here, to these people that's all they do for a living, is they come in and they do a top-down of you. We figure out,
Done.
yeah, yeah.
Done.
No, I
Company's done.
think we need to get it done. You know, all these other things,
I can't do
you know, we don't know about. We know we need these,
that. Yes.
and we have the proposals for them. We've been not sitting on them, but really waiting to make a decision.
I just I saw that, so I thought I'd bring it back.
Thank you. So I don't know what we can recommend from here, but if it's on the agenda for the board, then I guess we'll discuss it there.
Yeah, the only item that, of those three is the strategic plan though. I think that's probably the
That's the first part.
base, that's the building block anyway.
That's
for
right.
the-
Yep.
That's the first step.
So can we just make a motion to recommend to the board to give you what you need to approve one of these proposals, or how
Not
does?
on our, sorry, it's not on our agenda.
Well,
It's on the board agenda,
they
is
said
it?
they had it on the board's agenda.
It's on the board agenda, right?
Right.
Not on ours.
Not on ours,
It's
so.
not on ours.
You could
I mean,
recommend
you
use
could
of ARPA funds
Make a
for that.
So we can we can motion to recommend using ARPA funds for the strategic plan, authorizing the village administrator to move forward to bring those proposals to the board.
Second.
Well, yeah, okay.
You get all that, Jessica?
Anyway,
But what I'm hearing is that because we have the ARPA funds on the agenda, she's very good. The ARPA funds on the agenda, you can make a recommendation to the board to use ARPA funds for that study. That's what she's saying. That's on the agenda. I was thinking you. because we don't
I got it now.
have that on there. So all we're gonna do is make a recommendation to the board to use ARPA funds for that specific study that's gonna be on the board agenda tonight.
Yes,
And I usually see the strategic, I usually see the comp before the strategic,
Now, let's do the strategic first.
but I don't know what they're at either, so.
See, strategic gives you the goals of the board. That's what I'm gonna do first. So I wanna make that motion. Okay? Recommend to the board that the board use the ARPA funds, that's right, fund the right term? ARPA, I think it is,
yeah. that's what-
for the village strategic plan, amount rougher, depending on it, but $40,000.
Yeah, I would build something in there. I wouldn't, yeah,
I said 40,000.
that's perfect.
Include the organizational study and the compensation
No,
study.
no, they're not ready for it yet. They have to get the proposal, they know where they're at, they're not ready for it. They're ready to, they have only on tonight's agenda, they have, by earmark, you have the strategic plan.
Ms. Baker, I'll second. Second motion.
Second by Hardinger, motion's been approved. Any more discussion? No remarks, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
That's the only thing in the board tonight.
Resolution ordinances,
Nothing.
nothing? Okay, future items, next meeting dates, Monday, July 18th, 2022 at 4:30. Topics for future meetings, vendor addition, procedure checklists, direct payments, policy reviews. Remarks from staff?
Just with that, topics of future meetings, we're pretty clear. We're gonna try to
We're gonna bring ARPA back and.
get together with the board and
Wasn't in July, there was gonna be a tourism?
whatever they can work out.
Did that,
Whatever they can-
really, the last time they ran over quite a bit, so if you're gonna have a joint board finance
We will
committee,
make sure that, the agenda
Talk to the
items
rest of
are,
them and Mark and see what's gonna work for everybody.
Mark usually likes earlier meetings.
Yeah, good.
Michael, who is? I'm sorry, I'll wait till after.
Remarks from committee members?
You know, Marks and committee members, I heard earlier someone wanted to talk about, I can't get the right word, Nick Road?
Nick Avenue.
Nick Road, am I right to say that?
Yeah, Nick Avenue.
Nick Avenue. Okay, so remarks from committee members. You mentioned that when it first came in the door,
I did.
but do you have comments on that or?
Did you have that on the agenda, Keith? I know you and I.
I just have it under my report and I provided information for your review in that OneDrive.
Right.
You had a chance to look at that, but just to answer the question, the last conversation was that Village of Croninwood president was to contact Village of Weston president. I relayed that information to Village of Weston president, and I have not heard anything about any meeting being set up yet with staff. So I don't know if you know anything more about that?
Staff, I'm at Croninwood right now as the interim, when I moved from Public Works to Economic Development now. And basically, they have, no offense, there's so much in turmoil with staff changing that doesn't get on the agenda.
Yeah, I feel like you guys are battling a couple of fronts there.
They
I don't
have,
know how we're gonna get anything.
it's an issue that I know, because I used to be Public Works Director there 6 years ago. I know the situation real well. I understand it real well, and I know what happened. So basically, there's a residence on the Croninwood side.
I think the only residence is on Croninwood side, isn't it?
Yes, but there's
Yeah.
also interest on the Weston side in that area too. So we know that, I know that. Maybe the rest of the board, Croninwood board doesn't know that.
I know there's a couple of layers behind this.
Yeah. So I don't know when you can get that meeting, but I think it eventually happens.
But it does need to be, yeah. Well, and I think the hope behind it is whatever comes out of that is gonna set the precedent for the future so we don't continually have to have this.
That's what I'm looking for if I was there to write the staff report.
So, and I think that's why they're asking for a couple of elected people to become part of that meeting. But again, with what you guys are dealing with down there, I don't.
Staffer, I know exactly what you're looking for, but all the politicians have not brought it to my attention. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
All right, announcements?
We do have a new staff member. Jenna did leave the beginning of June in Song Lao at Leicester Sons from the city of Schofield. She was a deputy clerk treasurer there. She did start last Monday, but she had a family emergency yesterday. She just texted, she said she's not sure when she's gonna be back, but hopefully soon.
Real quick question. Weren't we hiring another position too that we were short on?
We are hiring a clerk. Yes,
Another clerk, right.
And a Public Works
operator.
operator too.
Upper.
Hard to find them.
Okay.
Finance committee is adjourned.
I'll make the motion again.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.